So if you're clicking on this video, it's probably because you're interested in Brickell in some capacity, whether you're thinking about moving to Brickell or you just want to know what all the hype is about. So if you're looking for answers and you'd like to get to know the Brickell neighborhood a little bit better, then you've definitely come to the right place. Format of this video is very simple. I researched some of the top most Googled questions about Brickell, selected a few of my favorites, and will answer them here with the hopes that they can help answer some of your questions and provide some additional insight. As a realtor, I've sold tens of millions of dollars in the Brickell neighborhood alone, and I also lived in Brickell for a good part of my life. So I hope that that experience that I can share with you will provide you with some great value. Good enough? Cool. Let's get started. Oh, and before I forget, quick disclaimer, I will be saying the word Brickell a lot in this video. Sorry in advance. I know it's a little annoying, but hey, let's get through this. Question number one, is Brickell walkable? Probably the biggest reason people choose to live in Brickell over any other Miami neighborhood is the walkability. Brickell has been referred to as the Manhattan of the South or the Wall Street of the South. Honestly, I've never heard of anybody who's ever mentioned it to me like that, but you know, that's what they say. And I guess they are right. But look, it does kind of makes sense. Brickell started off as a financial district, and that is still very much part of its DNA. As Brickell has become more popular, more residential buildings sprouted up, and it has evolved into the urban landscape that we all know today, offering some of the best walkability you're going to find in Miami. And Miami was in desperate need of that, because if you know anything about Miami, you know it's not very walkable, and it's not really known for its public transportation for that matter. So it's easy to see why Brickell became so popular over the years, because at the time it was offering a Miami lifestyle from an entirely new perspective. Today, there are plenty of other neighborhoods in Miami that are taking a page off of Brickell's playbook and offer their own unique twist on it. So is Brickell walkable? Yes, the most walkable neighborhood in Miami you're probably gonna find. Some may say South Beach, but I would even argue that. Moving on to the next question, is Brickell good for nightlife? The funny thing is that this is probably the only question that I'm actually not well qualified to answer, because I'm not a nightlife person. I'm not into clubs. I'm not into large crowds or noisy bars for that matter. It's not really my vibe. Don't get me wrong. I love great restaurants, probably more than anybody. And Miami has a ton of fantastic upscale places, which keeps me busy on most weekends. It even has a new concept called club restaurants. So if you're really not into the whole going out nightlife scene like I am, but you still want to go to a fun, lively restaurant and switch it up every once in a while, then Miami definitely has you covered. But as far as the traditional nightlife scene is concerned, there's not really much that I can lend or offer here because, you know, again, it's not my scene. But from my clients and friends who are in that scene and what they've told me, yes, Brickell is good for nightlife. Not great, but good. Miami Beach is still going to be the king of nightlife and probably will never be dethroned. So if you want to have a nightlife experience or whatever, then you want to check out Miami Beach more than Brickell. But that leads me to my next most Googled question about Brickell, and that is, how close is Brickell to the beach? Short answer, very close. Most days you could probably get there within 15 to 20 minutes from Brickell. In terms of distance, it's not far. It's about 10 miles or less. But don't overlook Miami traffic. With the increase of residents and the ongoing construction, which feels like it's never going to end, that travel time can easily double. But in the end, Brickell is very close to Miami Beach. Real quick, if you're finding value from this video, help me out by clicking that thumbs up button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a ton, and you want to help me out because why not? It would be pretty cool if you did. All right, next question. What's the difference between Brickell and downtown? Honestly, not much. I mean, of course, there are differences, but each year with new development, they're becoming more similar than ever before. Let's start with the basics. Brickell essentially starts from Rickenbacker Causeway, which is on 26 and extends all the way south until you reach the Miami River, just past 5th Street. As soon as you cross that bridge, which is not very long, by the way, about 500 to 1,000 feet, you've officially entered into downtown Miami. Historically speaking, downtown Miami is where it all started, and there's a good mix of landmark buildings there, such as the Freedom Tower and Bayside Marketplace, with some other mixed-use commercial and residential spaces. For a while, and still kind of true today, and depending on some aspects, downtown has always been the more commercial side with some residential buildings thrown in. There was hardly a nightlife scene at all. Most restaurants and bars in the areas would close around 5 p.m. because it was mostly office building patrons they were servicing. And the few residential towers that did exist mainly lined Biscayne Bay, all with phenomenal views of the water, I may add. Today, that's changed a lot. More residential buildings have definitely hit the scene, spanning west of Biscayne Bay, and development for the Miami World Center, along with the revitalization of historic Flagler Street, all have something to say about the non-existent nightlife that is missing from downtown. But still, these areas are not fully completed yet, so as of now, we're just gonna have to wait and see how that all shakes out. In a nutshell, it's not as walkable as Brickell. There's not as much to do as Brickell, but in some cases, you can make the argument that you could get and find a better water view for your money in downtown. So if that is important to you, then downtown is definitely the way to go. Last two questions and we're out of here. And the last one is actually pretty interesting, so stick around for that one because I think it's the most Googled question in Brickell. But for this one, let's get through it. Do you you need a car in order to live in Brickell? Similarly to my walkability answer from earlier, the short answer to this is no, you do not. You could definitely get by without a car. I have plenty of clients who live in Brickell and do this, but although it is doable, it's probably not as practical as you think. Miami has a ton of other really cool, interesting spots that you're gonna wanna check out if you live here. And most of those spots are actually kind of close to Brickell. And in those instances, you could take public transportation like the Metro Mover, no problem. But there are many instances where there's a lot of areas you're gonna wanna check out in Miami that are not close to Brickell and not really that, accessible through public transportation. And in those instances, you're gonna find yourself wanting a car. So even though technically you could live in Brickell without one, there's still plenty of people, and I would say the majority of people who live in Brickell have a car, and most households in Brickell have more than one car. So that's just something for you to consider if you're thinking about moving to Brickell. Okay, last question, and one that got a ton of search results, probably because Miami is so freaking expensive, and people want to know with it how expensive Miami is it possible to still live here? The question is $75K a good salary to live off in Brickell? All right, let's get started with the fact that an average salary in Miami is about $45,000. So $75,000 is considered above average. This is obvious, but it's still also considered a very good salary to most people. But is it good enough to live in Brickell? Well, as of 2024, the average rent in Brickell is about $3,000 per month. So let's just do some very quick, simple math, nothing too elaborate, I promise, to illustrate the point if $75K is enough money. Using 20% reduction in taxes, your total take-home pay is about $60,000, give or take. That means that per month, you're left with $5,000, meaning that 60% of your total take-home pay is gonna go towards rent if you're paying around $3,000. And this is before you factor in any other fixed costs you may have. Once you factor those fixed costs in, you're about 75 to 95% of your take-home pay, if not more, which as you can see, does not leave a lot of disposable income to really have any experiences in Miami. And Miami is very expensive when you're going out. So that means you're probably likely gonna have to stay home the majority of the month. So can you live here with $75K a year? Yeah, it's definitely doable, but either you found a really good rental rate, and if that's the case, I pray you don't lose it, good for you. But more than likely, you're splitting the cost with a roommate, which is the most common option that you have. But I guess you could be spending all your money on rent with nothing left over to really do anything but live in Brickell. But you live in Brickell, so I guess that's the point, right? Anyways, this is a new format I'm trying out. Plenty of other questions I didn't get to share today, but if you want me to do a part 2, let me know by liking this video, clicking that subscribe button, and while you're at it, leave me a comment because that helps a lot. Also, plenty of other really cool content for you to check out on my channel, so click any of the videos that you see here on screen so you can continue to peruse the Miami real estate, market and see what's new to you. And with that being said, guys, I will see you all next week. God bless.